Okay, Sean O'Brien has said he's not going to endorse this year. Said to be hedging his bets in case of a Trump victory. If Trump ends up winning, what do you think, Ms. Schuler, what do you think of the chances that the Teamsters and Sean O'Brien would be able to influence a Trump administration to move away from the Republican historic opposition to policies that benefit unionization and union workers?
What we're focused on right now is drawing the contrast between these two candidates. The track record is clear that in Trump's first term, we've seen this movie before. We gave him a chance. In fact, when he first got elected, the labor movement said, we're going to call balls and strikes. We're going to see how this plays out. And fast forward 4 years later, the record is very, very clear. It speaks for itself. And you've heard it all today about, gutting the National Labor Relations Board. That's the board that actually adjudicates when workers rise up and take a risk and try to form a union. That board decides whether they get to do that and whether it's stacked with people who actually can see clearly and stand on the side of workers or stand on the side of corporations. Our labor laws are badly broken in this country. They're tilted toward corporations. And so now we're in a position where we have a Biden NLRB who is actually giving workers a fighting chance when they take those risks to form their union and have their voices heard. So we've seen the track record of we've seen this movie before, 4 years of Donald Trump, and now we see what it's like to actually have a president who will stand up and fight for working people. The fact that these investments alone have had labor standards attached to them, that taxpayer dollars are investing in things like infrastructure and bringing whole new industries to this country like semiconductors, that they have to actually be good, high-wage, high-road jobs. Because that's what we deserve as a country. We deserve for people to actually make a decent living, to have health care security, to have retirement security. And that's what the policies of this administration have done.
I just, again, and I respect the questions and I respect the journalists who are here, but it doesn't take much to see that you had 4 years of Donald Trump. And so whatever they're going to say right now, they're belying the facts of what they've done. Again, whatever they're writing in a platform on women's reproductive rights is so undermined by what Donald Trump did. He put 3 Supreme Court justices on the Supreme Court who, after generations of Roe v. Wade, ripped it down and cast us into a world where in states like mine, we're raising money literally for all of the women who can afford to come from states where you can't get an abortion, where you can't get reproductive rights, where you are literally in need of care to save your life because your child can't come to term, but you can't get the care in your state. We're raising money for women, and women in my state are terrified because they've heard what Donald Trump and other congressional Republicans have said about a national abortion ban. It doesn't take much to just simply look at the 4 years of Donald Trump and see what you got. An erosion of women's rights, an erosion of reproductive rights, an erosion of abortion rights, a destruction and attack on Planned Parenthoods. And so I don't care what they say, you have evidence. This labor confusion should not be there. We have clarity. He picked for his Secretary of Labor somebody that was avowedly anti-union. Joe Biden's Department of Labor is doing so much great work to protect workers, to fight for workers' rights. We're having the worst heat wave right now in America. It's stunning what's happening. Joe Biden is working to do everything he can to get laws and actions through OSHA to protect workers and give them things like like crazy things like rest breaks. What a concept. And what did Trump's OSHA do? What did Trump's NLRB do, National Labor Relations Board? I mean, I saw what they did during the pandemic with meatpacking plants where people were dying in unsafe work conditions. They actually supported measures to speed up lines and get around protections for labor. This is a clear contrast, America. We have the president and vice president, the most pro-union, pro-women's rights, pro-healthcare president in my lifetime. And it's not rhetoric. There are receipts for all of this. And you have a president whose 4 years was an attack on unions, an attack on organizing, an attack on labor protections. And when it comes to actually creating jobs, this is the stunning thing. You have two different presidencies to compare. Let's look at the numbers. Who created the most jobs on their watch? Donald Trump, who is with Herbert Hoover on the least amount of created jobs, in fact, lost total jobs? Or perhaps one of the greatest job creators in the modern presidency? Let's go to manufacturing jobs. A president whose rhetoric, who ran around this country saying he was going to create manufacturing jobs, but didn't, versus the president that has created the biggest boom in manufacturing jobs in decades. Let's talk about union jobs. We have a president that bragged that he was going to do infrastructure for America. There was an infrastructure month, I think. There was an infrastructure week, I think. I think he had infrastructure days, but never produced an infrastructure bill. And then we have a president in Joe Biden who, along with congressional Democrats, was able to bring about a bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is the biggest investment in infrastructure ever, and then said, stop, wait, we're going to make sure those are union jobs. There are kids in cities like Milwaukee and Camden that are getting apprenticeships in unions right now because of Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. This isn't complicated. You don't need a PhD. You don't need to be Woodward and Bernstein and have an investigative crew to simply lay two presidencies side by side and see who has the best record on job creation, union jobs, manufacturing jobs, women's protections, safety and security at the workplace. We know what we have. And so all of our jobs is to simply tell the truth, to look at the numbers, look at the data. I'm a man of faith, in God we trust, but in politics, show me the numbers. And the last 4 years, under the worst of circumstances, a global recession, globally, I travel around the world and see other countries struggling. The number one economy in the world is the United States of America. The strongest manufacturing sector in the world is the United States of America. Under this president and Democrats in Congress. It's not complicated, folks. And the last thing, I'm sorry, I was sitting back there trying to be patient. let these experts speak. I have a simple test when I support a leader or not. Simple test. You cannot lead the people if you don't love the people. Not just the people who vote for you. Do you love the people? I think the way people talk about other folks in America is more of a reflection of who you are than who the person you're talking about is. I've listened to Donald Trump. I've known him for years. Way before he was a politician. And I listen to the demeaning and degrading ways he talks about people and places. The way he talks about women who don't support him. The way he talks about people in his own party. God, the disgusting things he said about my former governor, Chris Christie. The way he attacks people's weaknesses or disabilities. I've heard how he talks about people. It does not connote anybody to believe that he loves folk. And then there's Joe Biden. I ran against him in a primary. My mother to this day teases me about how I just started really loving the guy. Because I got to see him behind the scenes when nobody was watching. I believe another saying, simple truth, someone who's nice to you but not nice to the waiter is not a nice person. Look at folks when nobody's watching how they act. America, you have a lot of choices on policy or on facts. I believe the Democratic Party has done so much to attack rising costs, to attack rising prescription drugs, to fight through a globally bad economy and produce more jobs and more opportunity and better health care and greater coverage. I believe all of those things that really matter to households, but I want America to think about something also. At a time where people are talking about tamping down political rhetoric, that is not enough. We have a problem in this country that we hate each other just because of how we vote. Fox News watchers, MSNBC watchers, they're told by these 24-hour stations to hate each other. Caricatures are being produced of Democrats and Republicans that are so far from the truth. I see it in the Senate. Nobody wants to talk about our bipartisan bills. Everybody wants to talk about our disagreement. This is a vote on policy. America chooses who's going to be best for the bottom line of your family. But God, in this time, look for leaders that lead with love. Look for people that don't just say tamp down the rhetoric. Rise up the community, the beloved community that our country has to be. Support the people that know that even though you don't vote for me, you're not my enemy. In this moment in our democracy, please vote for decency and kindness and empathy and grace. Those are the best American values and the best American virtues. Listen to how candidates talk about the other side, about Democrats if they're a Republican, or about Republicans if they're a Democrat. That will show you whether they're a leader that really can bring us together. And the last thing I'll say is this world is in a wretchedly difficult place. From Haiti to Sudan, we're at a point in human history with the most food insecure people. We are called in this country to be a light unto all nations. Choose who you want in the White House to be the nation that the world needs. Are they a president that talks about, excuse my language, shithole countries? Or are they a president that sees every nation with its people having dignity and potential and possibility, and knows that America alone, America first, America alone, we are the strongest nation on the planet, but America with other nations in partnership for human rights and human dignity, we are invincible. This is an election about what's best for your family. I know the Democrats and Joe Biden are going to fight for your health care, fight for good paying jobs, fight for your retirement security, but the thing we really need in this country right now is patriotism. And patriotism is love of country, and you cannot love your country unless you truly love your countrymen and women, all of them.